Hello and a very warm welcome to this edition of Insight. And Insight today we are going to talk about the long-drawn tussle between the two Maharatnas, the Coal India Limited, the CIL, and the NTPC. But exactly, there are a lot of reasons that have emerged because of this tussle. One relating to the quality of coal, which the NTPC is doubting, which is why there have been some deductions of payments by the NTPC to the CIL. Though as of now, we know that the issue has been resolved with the participation of a third party, which both these Maharatnas have agreed to, which will be testing the quality of the coal being supplied by the CIL. But what exactly does it mean for the power industry, for the ambitious power program that the government really aims to achieve, and certain other aspects? We'll talk about that in this edition of Insight. Joining me in the program is Mr. K.G. Narendranath. He is Deputy Editor with the Financial Express. Dr. Avinash Chandra, he is former professor with Center for Energy Studies, IIT Delhi, and India representative with Central European News, Mr. Shantanu Guhare. Welcome to the program, all of you. Let's start the discussion with you, Mr. Narendranath. Since we know, as I said in the beginning, that it's a tussle between the two big Maharatnas. But how would you like to analyze the differences simmering between the two companies?
No, this is the basic issue of the quality of coal in the country. The quality of Indian coal as compared to the coal in other major countries like Australia and all. If you take the gross calorific value, which shows the efficiency of the coal, our coal has high ash content and high moisture content. So this has been an issue, and particularly for eastern coalfield coal, this is the quality. The major issue is that we have to improve our coal production practices. For that, what is needed is to denationalize coal mining. So government is taking certain measures in a piecemeal way to address this. Traditionally, oil imports have been a major reason. Even now it continues to be. But oil imports is inevitable because our production is limited. But we have huge coal reserves in the country. These reserves have to be utilized, and our coal output has to increase. So for that, some measures have been taken recently on public-private partnership model. In the budget also there is a mention about public-private partnership model, an extension of the model, same model, a 30-year agreement of mine development operator agreement with the Coal India. But here also the sale right, the right to sell the coal will be with the CIL only. Right. And the price also will be fixed by CIL. So it is doubtful how many global companies will be interested. If you say the global mining giants like BHP, Billiton, Rio Tinto, I am doubtful about whether they will be interested in this model. Even though this model in 30-year may be one incentive, still it will be doubtful. So the point is that we have to denationalize coal mining and lead to a market-determined pricing of coal. So something which is needed, but this is a politically sensitive issue. Government has been evading this particular model because it needs legislative sanction, and various other measures have been used by the government to increase coal output.
But you know, there have been similar concerns here because, Dr. Chandra, we know that the government had been forcing the NTPC to go for signing the fuel supply agreement with the CIL. 30 other power firms have done it, but NTPC has refused to do it. It made these deductions on the basis of its own assessment of the quality of coal. This really raises serious concerns about the issue of quality of coal being provided domestically to our power firms.
Right. As they pointed out earlier, we have got another thing is the very high ash content. Our coal contains up to 40 to 45% ash contents. And this raises a serious environmental issues because whatever the coal we are burning, and as a result the efficiency of the power plant, and also raises a huge amount of the fly ash which is coming out of our power plants and which has to be captured successfully, and after capturing this has to be utilized properly. So all these two issues raise serious questions, and in a way NTPC is comparatively right because our indigenous source may not be able to meet the environment requirement as well as the power requirement. Okay. Unfortunately, the good quality of the coal taken by CIL goes for the other industry like steel or cement industry. where good quality of the coal is utilized, but for power this is not available. So in a way that you can say the major ultra thermal power plants like Reliance or Tata groups, they have made arrangements from overseas coal like Indonesia and Australia and South Africa, where a comparatively good quality of the coal is imported from Indonesia, South Africa and Australia, and which is utilized. A via media has been come out that we have the blending of the coal. That means that some coal from the imported and some coal from the indigenous sources, that is mixed and is supplied to the power plants. But then there is another issue of the pricing. The CIL has fixed their pricing of the coal as per government regulation or their own this thing.
That 124 is coal based, and gas is only around 10% now. Even hydropower is around 9% that level, and nuclear and all only futuristic things. We will continue to depend on coal. That means we have to, if our economy has to grow at a sustained high rate for a longer period of time, we will have a greater dependence on coal, and we have the policy space, autonomous policy space, to continue to generate power out of coal. So it is important quantity of coal. At the same time, we have to increase our domestic output by introducing more players and having proper regulation in the sector, better beneficiation technologies called washeries as he mentioned. That's also important for the domestic coal. And now we are thinking about the coal pooling, the pricing pooling mechanism.
Price pooling, right.
The price pool means
something that was also suggested in the budget.
The budget, and that will also be a measure towards a more transparent and competitive pricing of coal. Yeah.
But you know, price pooling is something which again NTPC, in fact, we learned opted to move out the price pooling mechanism for import of coal being run by the Coal India Limited. Now that was another front that it opened.
Well, I raised that earlier. I mean, NTPC is raising issues of pricing now. I would like to know why. They have been debating this since last January. A whole year and a half has passed. The problem has not been resolved. Even the coal prices from that same coal field of under Eastern Coalfields India, which is a subsidiary of Coal India, which has been mined exclusively for NTPC, the rack rates have been reducing and it's now around 625 per metric ton as compared to 840 2 years ago. Yet, by consuming that coal, you are saying the quality is bad, and the same amount of coal, same quality of coal internationally is priced very high. So, I mean, what kind of a debate is this? My point is, they have to pay. And
please stay tuned for more. Dr. Chandra, what kind of, I mean, do you see that the environmental concerns will become central to this issue? How do you look at the future of this sector, sir? Since we know that there are too many ministries,
right.
They're having too many issues. I mean, presently, if you talk about just the coal ministry or the power ministry and the environment ministry, because environment concerns have now become central to the whole issue, whether it's the issue of land acquisition or it's the issue of mining and others. How do you really look at the future of this sector? Since we are saying that we have to provide power at a decent rate, we also have to ensure that we mine the coal, and the coal that is being mined is also of a decent quality, which leads to less environment degradation. There are too many concerns here.
Yeah, you are right. You see, I just give you an example of China, because India is normally compared with China. And in China, the coal consumption as compared to India is 4 to 5 times more. And there are serious environmental problems. And we are likely to face serious environmental problem as well. You see, whatever you say, the other sources of the power, as it has been pointed out, that almost 80% of the power we are getting from the coal-based power plant because of their very high power load factor. Because and while other sources of this thing, say hydro plant, their plant load factor is very small. They are limited, or renewable energy for that matter. So, but major source of power is coal, is still coal, and it will remain coal unless we have some breakthrough in some areas.
Right.
And the future is still depending upon the coal. it will depend upon the, then we have to improve the quality of the coal, definitely. And we have to include more, but as the more and imported coal is coming, the sulfur dioxide emission will also become important. So we have to do some sort of the technology for desox methods as well in some power plants, and maybe NOx method has to apply. So, and what will it affect? It will result in the pricing of the power, which will become more costly. So if we have to remain healthy, we have to pay more price. That is as simple as simple. We are not paying price, we are become unhealthy, we are paying the price in form of the medicines.
That's right.
So we have to see which form of the price we have to pay.
Okay. Mr. Ray, but are we really prepared for that sort of a situation? Because we haven't really seen that increase in electricity prices so
situation. No state government will agree to bite the bullet because electricity is a political case.
Right.
I mean, nobody wants to push the agenda.
And one of the big problems is that we haven't really passed it on to the consumer till date. I mean, we haven't really provided it.
Consumer because
but you know, giving it in a little, let's say, if you increase it by some paisas or some rupees in some in a set period of time, as one might do it with petrol and diesel, this would certainly not create ripples.
What you're rightly saying, Shalini, the same thing has happened in Delhi, where we are sitting. The biggest agitation currently going on in the town is over electricity bill and power bill. They say it's still inflated.
Yes.
And they have not been able to raise it. Whatever little amount it was raised, it has triggered a huge protest. So how do you solve this? All the states have all ganged up against CIL. I hope I'm not kind of holding the foot on CIL here, but my point is very clear. On one hand, you are expecting absolute low cost power and absolute high quality coal. That kind of a blending is very difficult in a situation like India. That means you're looking for a Ram Rajya where everything will be picture perfect. No, that's not going to happen. You have been that we have paid more, now we won't pay. Now that doesn't solve the problem. But pricing is very crucial for anything, and we are talking about a coal price.
There are a few things which probably can be considered. For example, as the kind of mechanism that Dr. Chandra was talking about being followed in China, or grading system that
grading system
but is it, I would like to know here, are funds any problem with this sector? I mean, is there any problem with the funds being given to these ministries?
I don't know how much of fund Coal India has allocated in trying to locate new mines and trying to find out modern methods or modern technologies of mining. Many people have said, it's been documented that some of the areas of Coal India that needs to be looked at is the way it mines the coals. The way open pits are left there without filled with sand, and the mafia goes in there. The amount of coal that's
and there's no control over this mafia.
Okay, now the NTPC guys are saying those areas are totally controlled by the mafia. They regulate the route. For 15-17 years, the mafia has sold the coal to NTPC, and suddenly they've realized that no, they should not pay. That doesn't solve the problem. I mean, if the mafia is a political issue, mafia is a political problem.
About 980 million tons, and the total production of coal is likely to increase. We don't have any control over the coal mafia. We know that we are sitting on great coal reserves, but the mining of coal is a big issue. We have a mining bill which
continue to incur losses, and we cannot have every 10 year a bailout plan, a debt recast plan, which we are now planning a debt recast plan for the SEBs. So it is very important that we introduce a market determined pricing for fuel, right from the fuel to the power sector, so that the entire system is transferred. The political decisions are being taken on that. So if you continue with the present system, it is going to be catastrophe. So what we have to be optimistic, and for optimism we have to take necessary action so that our dreams can come true.
Okay, on that note, today we are talking about the coal quality issues and the NTPC-CIL dispute. This speech mentioned about the PPP policy framework for coal mining in the country. He said that we must reduce our dependence on imported coal, and one of the best way to do it is to initiate PPP framework. Well, it is believed that PPP model coal mining may help raise about 60 million tons of coal by 2016 and 17. But one of the contentious issues here is that the private sector must be taking care of everything from land acquisition to safety norms. Mr. Narendranath, it's very important here to read this PPP model, which the government really thinks will be working in future. You know, when you invite the private players, it's all right till that extent. But the moment you tell them to deal with other issues like land acquisition, deal with other issues like safety norms, now that's when it becomes a little unattractive for any private player. Do you see that's one of the problems here?
See, as I said earlier, PPP is only a temporary solution, a bureaucratic solution, and the ultimate solution, I said, denationalization. But PPP has to be investor friendly. It should be viable. Even now, Coal India has certain PPP. Some of their activities they outsource to private sector, but that has not been in a large scale. The government is now trying to model. But even the 30-year contract, the government thinks will attract some major players like global BHP Billiton, Rio Tinto and all, and it will introduce some competition in the market, even while we are not officially allowing privatization. It's a backdoor privatization which the government is thinking about, but I am doubtful about its viability. Because even this 30-year contract, even though the tenure of the contract has increased, it may not really interest the private sector players at all. I don't think the private sector will be really interested. It won't bring any dramatic change in this PPP model may not bring a dramatic change. The government is saying about some 60 million tons and all. It is even that is a modest target because we should aim at higher targets. So if you want to increase, as you mentioned earlier, we will have our demand will be around 900 million tons by another
980
many
million
years.
tons, that's right.
So 60 million won't do anything.
Won't do anything.
Coal blocks for 3 years, around 150 coal blocks were given to the different players so that they can develop the coal field and they can dig out the coal. Out of it, so far only 25 are actually started working. So this shows that the gap between the actual things and those has been assumed. The first reason being the land clearance. It is a very big issue. Whether it is code, you see in the, as you've seen that in the case of the Noida Transport Authority, there was a huge problem in the acquiring of the land for the Housing Development Society. Well, there were some different aspect as well. Similar aspect may be in the development of the coal blocks even. So there are social problems. Then there are environmental clearance, that is another big problem because they have to produce EIA studies and they have to be evaluated by the environment department, and there are all time taking processes. And the gestation period of coal actual development may become 10 years. So if the 30-year contract is how they will recover the cost. And then unless they are giving freedom to determine their coal, it is very difficult for this PPP participation. That is my
May not be able to ready to take it. So why don't I develop the coal blocks myself? Number one. Number two, if there is an issue about Coal India's technological ability and technological issues, that they are not using the state-of-the-art facilities to mine coals, it is up to the state-owned coal company to try and recover that and solve the problem. A similar situation has also happened in the tea market. If you realize, a large chunk of the tea gardens, because the plants had grown old, there was a time to replace them by planting new plants. Somewhere that never happened, and as a result, production went on a downhill. The similar situation I see here. Here the situation is, you have coal, but you can't mine it because of environmental issues. There are areas where there are coal and it has been mined, but it has been claimed that the mafia is taking that away. And there are coals which you are saying the standards are bad. So that means all the three problems
There are also some transportation problem in certain areas. There are law and order problems relating to
people are blaming that on the railways. They are saying the railways are unable to lay tracks right up to the coal mines, and as a result, the coal can't be taken out. There are many coal mines that they are expecting it that they should create a power plant next to it. But then again, land is becoming a problem.
Land is becoming a problem.
So I think if all these contention issues can be resolved, the problem lies at our doorstep. That we don't have to go abroad to look at this. But I really doubt. Somebody really needs to solve the mining problem, the issues of mining. Once the issues of coal mining is resolved, then things will be much better. I don't think we have been able to resolve that for many years, and I don't see that being resolved for the many years to come.
Do you think that the bill that is pending will certainly solve this issue, the mining and mining regulation bill?
but that means what? That means actually nothing for the miners. Coal India continues to be a monopoly. Well, there's no problem with that as long as they mine perfectly well. But it is just that they have to upgrade their standards to a level that is on par with international standards.
The price pooling which we are talking about is not about market determined pricing. It is only to redistribute the cost of high imported coal cost among to rationalize the redistribution, the distribution of the cost, the high cost of imported coal, because you are going to allocate coal, domestic coal, on a pro rata basis to the power plants, and the power plants can then trade it among themselves. There will be some coastal power plants who may find import viable. So for them, they can trade that domestic coal allocation with certain other power plants. It is a redistribution policy, a rationalization of the higher cost of imported coal. But the basic thing is transparent pricing, market determined pricing. For market determined pricing, you will have to have competition in the segment.
That's right.
You will have to have more players in the segment.
More players in the sector.
So until we address the fundamental issue of the monopoly in the coal sector, which is the reason for all the evils in the coal sector, and have a proper regulated market determined pricing and market determined allocation, and various players competing with each other with better technologies and producing more coal and reduce our dependence on costly imported coal, then we cannot have these piecemeal bureaucratic solution
for this. Yeah. And what kind of a restructuring do you think CIL needs? Does it need any?
Well, I think it should be able to handle the mafia very well, and that is one contentious issue. Year after year keeps cropping up, that crores of coal goes away, is taken away, illegally mined with explosives and all of that, and it happens right under the nose of Coal India. If Coal India can take a serious look at that, then genuinely they will be able to save a lot more coal that's been taken away and sold illegally. Let's not forget, India's illegal coal market is worth 250 crores, and that's a big market.
That's true.
If Coal India can actually take half of that away from the mafia, I don't know, whatever ways, the means they can employ, but that is one area I would like that, because why the illegal coal mining is still on after decades of nationalization of the coal sector. I don't understand that. We are living in a modern century, and here, if that can't be controlled.
I'm sure that the state level leaders can find out some sort of mechanism by which this mafia, if not altogether eliminated, it may be at least somewhat
restrained. Okay, sir. So on that very optimistic note, it's
Right.
time here to say goodbye to you. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for talking to us. So that's all we have for you in this edition of Insight. Thanks for watching us. Goodbye.